Hello, my name's Jonah. This is my old college roommate, Neil. And we decided after 30 years of knowing each other that we were going to do a crazy trip down the Mississippi River, which we were finishing up today. The trip took 18 days from the top to bottom. We started up in Minnesota and we're now down at the Gulf of Mexico. And we just wanted to throw a little video out there showing people the things that really came in handy for us and kind of how we laid out our ship, so to speak. And the things that really made this trip very comfortable. We had an awesome trip. We only had a couple of really tough experiences that we went through because we were very well prepared for this trip.
Speaking of hard experiences, here you go. Tell that story.
Yeah, so one night we were on a sandbar and the river dropped about 3 feet, 4 feet in a couple hours. And when I got up to take a leak about 1 o'clock in the morning, our boat was completely out of water. So we had to dig it out with a shovel, and then the barges supplied some water that helped get us off the sandbar. But if we didn't have the shovel, we would have been stuck one night. Second thing I want to talk about that really saved our bacon is our fan. Depending on where you're going, the fan, an electric fan that's cordless, is a must. So this thing lasted all night long on low speed. On high speed, you don't know how good that sound is when it's about 110 degrees in your tent and it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. This right here takes the same batteries as my Milwaukee little chainsaw, and both of them can be charged with the same charger. So that was kind of a thing that really came in handy. My chainsaw here, and I know I'm not a Milwaukee salesman, but the chainsaw here came in so handy several times at getting firewood, dry firewood especially. And the battery, I only had to charge the battery one time in this whole trip. So you only need about 10 pieces of wood. For a fire, you don't need to make some huge fire. Our thermocells saved our bacon more times than we can count. We tried to get off the river early, and so we weren't rushed. The mosquitoes come out right when it's getting dark. And so we were seeking refuge in our tent. But the thermocells are a lifesaver. I mean, mosquitoes will ruin a camping trip really quickly.
Yeah, and to add to that, honestly, I had a lot of reservations about the amount of bug spray and DEET that I was going to spray on myself. And with these, honestly, I did not use bug spray one time. These were wonderful. You have to plan ahead a little bit, place these strategically, but also do your best to be in the tent as the sun is going down so that you can avoid those hot spots of the day when the mosquitoes are biting at you the most.
So our Gorilla Tape right here that we got really came in handy this several times. So get a really good brand of duct tape, and we have a 110 power inverter. It plugs into a cigarette lighter. So I have a cigarette lighter hardwired into my boat. So we had constant 110 power to charge our phones and to charge our fan. Tell them about, this was Neil's favorite thing we had.
Straight up gold. I really enjoyed this. Jonah was the driver. He was definitely the captain of the trip. And so my job was to control the command center, and the command center is just a Rubbermaid tub right here in the middle of the ship. And so I had my Quizbees logbook there. I knew where the mile markers were, the marinas. The interesting thing about the Mississippi River is the upper Mississippi, which spans about 900 miles from St. Paul, Minnesota down to Cairo, Illinois, has, I almost want to say hundreds of marinas. The places that you can stop at are almost endless. Every 10 miles you're going to get something, and so from fuel to ice to water, you're greatly supported. What this comes in handy for is not really calling ahead to the marinas, because you can use your cell phone for that, but working yourself through the locks and dams. 27 locks and dams in the upper Mississippi. We only experienced one on the lower Mississippi, right there in New Orleans, to get onto the big lake. But what we did was about a mile out, we would call ahead, and in Quizbees logbook, it'll tell you exactly what frequency you go on. You can go, it's about 1 through 100. You get to the proper channel, and then you radio lock and dam number 14, pleasure craft requesting permission going down. Saved ourselves hours at a time, because if you call ahead before a large barge, and you can sneak in before that barge, you're saving yourself 2 to 3 to 4 hours of frustration and just kind of hanging out.
And being in the sunlight too.
Yeah, and being in the sun. So really, what did it cost? About $80?
$80, yeah. This is a waterproof one that floats. It's a marine radio, and if you're going to go up and down the Mississippi River, you really need to have one of those. A good knife is very important. Everybody's got these. A good flashlight. This is a D-celled one, a big powerful one, so we never had to change our batteries the whole entire trip. We used it every night for 18 nights. Neil was the chef on the trip, and we ate very well. We loaded up with food in Minnesota before we started, and you really need to have a lot of food that's really good quality food.
Yeah. So we ended up using the skillet for everything, and so bring in a little cutting board, have a good knife, but brother, onions, bacon, make everything taste good. And so we grilled up countless.
We cooked everything in bacon.
We and then we ended up throwing on a decent amount of rice on top of that were ready-made pouch rice, Uncle Ben's or whatever. And then our secret sauce to all of the greatness and goodness was after you boil up the bacon and get the grease going, and then your meat, and then your onions, and then your rice. Then we'd throw in 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even a half a dozen eggs, and mix all that up, and man, you got a bounty, you got a cornucopia of goodness. You got to have a Coleman camp stove, because you can't always count on cooking successfully on an open fire. Jonah, excellent open fire cook. Me, I've never done it before, so I would have burned everything.
We had some of the best steaks cooked off the coals.
Yeah, the steak in Memphis was better than any steak I've ever had in the entire world. It was so good. But these guys last, online, they report that they last about an hour and a half. That's a lot of cooking. And so I ended up buying 6 of these for our trip from St. Paul, Minnesota down to New Orleans. We ended up using 3 of them. And so they do go a long ways, and it certainly makes cooking a lot easier. Really, if you're a coffee drinker, you got to have this, because it's super easy with the cheap little tea kettle that we bought to boil up your water, have your instant coffee to start the day, and then again, having a good frying pan to cook on. But also this serves down in Louisiana and Louisiana and Mississippi as a gator kind of swatter as well. Those flying carp also are real. So there was a few times where I stood up and had this in the baseball bat.
Yes, he was using it for personal protection for sure. Yeah, don't mind the waves. We got a ship going by right now. We're down right next to the Gulf. Really important to have lots and lots of fresh water. So we never ever came close to running out of water. We had a 5-gallon jug here full of water, and then we would transfer it over to 1-gallon jugs, which we would put in our cooler to stay cold. You want to have lots of water so you're not going cheap on using the water. Anyhow, this is most of the stuff. First aid kit, Neil used that. This whole trip was 2,200 miles, and we had to add oil twice to our boat motor. So, and it's almost a brand new motor, so it used surprisingly more oil than I thought. So you need to be prepared if you're going to take a trip like this, and have yourself some extra oil. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we laid out our boat. This right here was Neil's command center. This is a big Tupperware tote. He put, a lot of things, our rain jackets and stuff that we had for if it started raining on us real quickly, we could get them quickly. Food, some little knickknacks. We had gloves. A big problem that we had, probably our toughest adversary that we had, was the heat. And so you need to have, loose clothing with hoods on it, stuff like this, so you can keep the heat off your face. Even if you put sunscreen on, your body's soaking up that solar energy, and we both got sun poisoning in Mississippi, and it made for a real rough couple days. A huge cooler, the biggest you can put on your boat, is what I recommend. When you get ice, get lots and lots of it. Don't go cheap on the ice. Get plenty of ice and get plenty of food. And for a trip like this, we had one stretch of river below St. Louis. That was 430 miles between fuel stops. So we had lots of extra fuel. We never ever came close to running out.
Having pre-made meals and little Tupperwares like this is golden. Super easy. Whenever you're off the river and you're tired and exhausted after a long day, last thing you want to do is, start cooking. So just dumping this into the frying pan or skillet is perfect. Having some pulled pork or whatever in Ziploc baggies. But you got to have tons of Ziploc baggies for a variety of things, because as much as the sun is your enemy, water's your enemy as well, because you can ruin a lot of good food and other supplies if you don't have them in Ziplocs.
Well, I think that about does it. The simple essentials, you guys will have that. We're just kind of giving you the tips that really came in handy for saving us on such a long trip. We camped out the whole time. Thermal, things to lay on, bedding, a sheet to lay under when it's really hot, and then it gets kind of cold in the morning time, and then having a heavier blanket that you lay on top of. Anyway, another day in paradise, my friends. Travel safe and travel frequent.